उन्होंने भी अद्भुत क्षमताओं का प्रदर्शन किया है। इंटीग्रेटेड एयर एंड लैंड कॉम्बैट सिस्टम ने शानदार काम किया है और यही तो है jointness.
Unlike Pakistan, India has provided proof of every move it has made. Transparency and zero tolerance have been the hallmark of India's stand on terror. Pakistan, on the other hand, has played the night rider in the subcontinent, not only sponsoring terror, but also standing by it. The question is, has the Operation Sindoor driven the point home, or will the pause need to be lifted to root out terrorism? Bureau Report, NDTV.
And the Ministry of External Affairs today came on record. It perhaps clearly set the record straight on US intervention on mediation, as well as calling out Pakistan's nuclear blackmail.
Pakistan position changed on 10th May morning after its air bases were effectively put out of action. All you have to do is to look at who called who to negotiate the terms of the cessation of firing. By the way, we are living in a day and age where you have satellite pictures available commercially. I urge you to look at the satellite pictures of the sites which Pakistan says or claims to have attacked in India. Contrast it with the sites and places which we successfully targeted and destroyed. That will give you a clear answer. Claiming victory is an old habit. The military action from our side was entirely in the conventional domain. This was also made very clear in the defense briefing yesterday. There were some questions also which were asked. There were some reports, however, that Pakistan National Command Authority will meet on 10th May, which we saw, but this was later denied by them. Pakistan FM has himself denied the nuclear angle on record. So, Rishabh, that also answers your question. As you know, India has a firm stance that it will not give in to nuclear blackmail or allow cross-border terrorism to be conducted invoking it. In conversations with various countries, we have also cautioned that their subscribing to such scenarios could hurt them in their own region.
And joining us now is a former ambassador, Kanwal Sibal. We also have Lieutenant Colonel Atul Holkar, who is a geopolitics expert, and Jonah Blank is author and served as policy director for South and Southeast Asia on the US Senate for Foreign Relations Committee. Ambassador Sibal, beginning with you, sir. India has effectively put out proofs for the world. There are imageries that have been put out. There is enough indication as to what has been the outcome, the new red line, as we keep talking about. Then why is Pakistan continuing with its lies and bluster?
Well, the interesting thing is that we've had to defend ourselves in terms of the media coverage that we have in the Western world about the outcome of the military exchanges between India and Pakistan, by our spokesman very rightly saying that now everything is available commercially with satellite imagery, and the people can themselves see whether Pakistani's claims of attacking our air bases have any merit, and compare that with the evidence we have put out, and then use the same imagery to arrive at the right conclusion. But the unfortunate part is that, barring some voices here and there, the Western media is buying the Pakistani initiative. Somehow they don't want the story to come out that in these exchanges, Pakistan got the worst end of this stick, and that Pakistan was pushed into a situation where it had to appeal to the United States of America to intervene and persuade India to declare a ceasefire. Now, this is unfortunate for a variety of reasons. One, that our expectation and legitimate expectation that Pakistan would draw the right conclusions from this may actually not prove right, in the sense that the mood in Pakistan, the kind of story that they're telling themselves, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the army chief, the street, all of them, and the social media that emanates from Pakistani sources in Pakistan and abroad, all seem to claim that either Pakistan got the upper hand or it was a draw. And the attention of the global media is only on whether India lost a Rafale to a Chinese missile or the performance of the JC-10, as if that was the crux of the entire confrontation between India and Pakistan. Somehow there is this, one gets the feeling that the Western media is absolutely reluctant to recognize that Pakistan got a beating. Why this is so, how deeply this is ingrained into the long-standing negative feelings about India, the narratives that we have seen in recent years about India, especially the present government, they just don't want to give the impression that the current government, which has changed, as Prime Minister rightly said, the paradigm of dealing with Pakistan can be acknowledged positively. They don't want to acknowledge it. Somehow they want to protect Pakistan. The consequence of this is whether Pakistan would have learned the right lesson and whether they would actually abjure using terrorism as an instrument of state policy, which they have done for almost 3 decades.
Yes.
I am a bit concerned that this will not happen, because if Pakistan were to give up this instrument and all that goes along with it, which means going to the UN General Assembly and abusing India, using the OIC to give the confrontation with India religious cover, on Kashmir Day, the Pakistani politicians engaging in unhinged rhetoric, about talking about Kashmir as the jugular vein of Pakistan. And so long as this Pakistan army chief, who's a mullah in Pakistani uniform, I don't think there will be a change in the mindset of the Pakistani army. Finally, if it was acknowledged that the Pakistan army was not able to defend Pakistan sufficiently, it will have serious repercussions domestically in Pakistan with regard to the role of the Pakistani army in the Pakistani state. And that itself can give rise to a lot of internal tensions, which could actually start pulling Pakistan apart.
But why is, the fact is that, Jonah Blank, that Pakistan here sought ceasefire. That's the truth of the matter. It's a statement of fact. Then why are they shying away from accepting that they were on the back foot, that India first struck terror camps inside Pakistan, then went ahead and pushed and targeted their air bases, and they were completely, they were completely damaged, and they had no other option but to go ahead and seek ceasefire? Why is Pakistan denying it, and why is the world, several sections, particularly in the Western media, not able to accept truth?
Well, Pakistan's goal for decades has been the same: to internationalize the Kashmir conflict. They've been utterly unable to achieve their ends by war. India has beaten Pakistan in every military engagement so far, so they're trying to win in the negotiating table what they can't win on the battlefield. And you're quite right. I think the international media has not really looked at the details very carefully. One of the things that concerns me the most is the US administration's handling of this has unwittingly helped the Pakistani narrative without even realizing what they've done.
Why use fabricated videos to claim that India was hit, Lieutenant Colonel Atul Holkar? I mean, the aim was to incite communal tensions in India, and that is the reason why, when we look at Pahalgam and the brutal killing of 25 of our citizens on that day, it was, there was a degree of religious profiling which happened that day. Lieutenant Colonel Holkar. Okay, we'll try and connect with him. Ambassador Sibbal, will you take that question?
Say it again. Can you repeat it?
You know, Pakistan indulged in nuclear blackmail. They weaponized the civil aviation. That's the fact. They deny aggression. They play victim. How long will this continue?
I think this will continue because that is the raison d'etre of Pakistan. I mean, if they give up hostility to India, then how do they keep united as a country? You've seen what's happening on the Balochistan front. You've seen what's happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Look at the massive strategic setback that they received in Afghanistan, where the Taliban, whom they had put in power there or facilitated their accession to power there, has turned against them and they are fighting each other. And Sindh also is restive. The economic situation is very poor. For the 24th time, they've gone to the IMF for a bailout. And yes, the Pakistani military seems to have resources to be able to boost their military arsenal and have that confidence that they can trigger somehow a conflict with India or take the risk of triggering a conflict with India by continuing to support terrorism, despite the messages that had been sent to them when we had our precision strikes as well as the Barakot operation. But this time, of course, the message has been driven home very, very strongly. But I'd like to add what was just said about the American position. It's very unfortunate that that Trump has totally messed up the U.S. diplomacy in this regard by the equivalence that he has created between India and Pakistan politically, militarily, morally, and in fact talking about how important it is the U.S. relationship with both countries and using trade as a weapon, saying that if the two sides didn't agree, he would cease to trade with them, and as a reward, he will now trade with them even more. But look at Pakistan. U.S. trade with Pakistan is only $7-some billion. With the United States is $200 billion. With India is $200 billion, plus everything else in terms of services and what the role that the Indian diaspora is playing in the American economy and in the American political system. So why is he? And then of course he's embarrassing India by making it appear that India has been compelled to agree to a ceasefire because President Trump desired it. He wanted it. I mean, this is diminishing India's status. If we are partners, then we should be treated as partners, and our sensitivities and our concerns should be taken into account. And he has enough. Trump and the Americans have enough experience of Pakistan's resort to terrorism against them, not to give them a pass like that. And in his current statement, he has said nothing about Pakistan's role in terrorism. If he had said in his statement, which is unsatisfactory in so many ways, that he's also called upon Pakistan to deal with the terrorism issue forcefully and credibly, then there would have been some internal balance in his statement. But he's talking about friendship with both countries, talking to leaders with both countries, teaching them at the same level, and not giving us the agency to decide when we should stop and when we should not stop. When our entire approach right from the start was that we did not want to escalate. We limited our strikes only to the terrorist hubs. We made it clear we are not attacking the Pakistan military. But when they started attacking our military bases and civilians, then we had to react. But right from the start, we have been saying that our reaction has been proportional, carefully calibrated, and that we're not interested in de-escalation. So we would have agreed to a ceasefire if Pakistan had demanded it, and indirectly the Prime Minister has made it very clear that this ceasefire has not taken place because of any American intervention. It's because Pakistan, through the right, they were
Pakistan sorted. That is the truth of it. Lieutenant Colonel Holkar, welcome to NDTV. We are discussing how Pakistan's dirty tricks department, is on an overdrive, and they are trying to project a completely different picture, far removed from the truth.
Yeah, Maria, Jai Hind, Maria, and Jai Hind to all the fellow panelists on the show. Maria, if you understand the very psyche of Pakistan, it was created on a bedrock of lies. It said, we could not live as a civilization with the majority Hindus in the erstwhile Indian state. And if you look from 1947, then they started that they were not it was not their soldiers which attacked Kashmir at that point of time. And since then, they have won every war with India. And so wonderfully well, they are cheating their own people. The army tell lies to the public of Pakistan. The Prime Minister speaks more lies to its own set of people. The largest parties, the elected Prime Minister is in the jail. So what narrative do you think they would be building? They have to, otherwise there's no survival. If you see the victory parade that came out in Lahore and Karachi and Islamabad after the announcement of so-called ceasefire, not from our side, we said stoppage of fire, and they called it ceasefire. I mean, it appeared as if they're so relieved. And if you look into the entire 5-6 days of narrative on their televisions, on their YouTube channels, onto Twitter, it appeared that they have really won the world war. Fact of the matter is, if they don't do that, and if they don't say that, how will this nation survive? And that's the fact.
Thank you so much for joining us on this discussion, gentlemen. Lieutenant Colonel Holkar, Kanwal Sibal, and Jonah Blank. Shifting focus now to someone who has felt it very, very closely. Nimrat Kaur is an actor and a daughter who lost her father, a man in uniform, to Pakistan-sponsored terrorism 3 decades ago in Kashmir. She is joining us live. Nimrat, I'm speaking to you at a time when Prime Minister Modi has addressed the nation. He has spoken to the soldiers, in fact, the warriors who fought for India during Operation Sindoor. As someone who is from the Fauji family, what are your thoughts on the wars, and particularly about this latest conflict between India and Pakistan?
Well, Maria, I am a daughter of a martyr, actually, and that is something that I walk with a lot of awareness regarding. Because the life that I have led, not just being an army daughter, but also being the daughter of a soldier who lost his life to terrorism in Kashmir in the year 1994. This is an ongoing problem for just too many years now. And it is a kind of a disease that has gripped our country every now and then, whether it's attacks on civilians or on our armed forces or on our on our army facilities. It's something that, it pains me from the deepest level of my heart, where innocent lives are lost, our brave soldiers are lost. So I feel like terrorism firstly has no place in this world. And when it becomes a question of our country, it feels much more personal. And every loss and every life that is lost feels personal. And Operation Sindoor, which was led by the government of India, by our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, along with our armed forces, I feel like it was a befitting reply and a response to something that needs to be nipped in the bud. It's a problem that goes so deep that the enablers of that problem and the people who back that kind of a mindset, whether it's the schooling, whether it's the grounds which are fertile enough for such heinous activities to take place, all of that needs to be uprooted in a manner that it never, ever sees the day of light again.
Nimrat, you spoke
light
about...
of day again, I'm sorry.
Nimrat, you spoke about your personal loss, having lost your father to Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. How do you look at Operation Sindoor? Will it really act as a deterrent, as the government certainly is hoping it would? You're a martyr's daughter. Will it really act as a deterrent, and will it perhaps begin the end of terrorism?
I feel like it's the strongest start we could have had. And there is nothing more important than letting them know that this simply cannot go on. See, I'm not an expert on military strategies or warfare, politics, or any of that stuff. I am a citizen of this country. I am an affected party in a way where my family and I have dealt with this loss for more than 3 decades now. We lost my father in 1994 in Verinag in Kashmir, whilst he was in service. So we lost him there to an act of calculated terrorism. It was very much, something that just wasn't a freak occurrence. It was something that was planned and executed in the most, I would say, in the most ghastly way. And if not today, then when? If not now, then when? These are the kind of operations and these are the kind of moves and a hard sort of a stand that needs to be taken against terrorism. Who am I to say, how this is going to pan out or not? But I feel like there's nothing better and nothing more important that can and should have been done in the way that it was carried out. And they are going for where terrorism exists and for where the bedrock of such activities is somewhere set. And I feel like there is nothing more important than that as a nation, as an army daughter, as the daughter of a martyr who lost his life in action.
Nimrat, in Operation Sindoor, India actually struck 9 terror bases inside Pakistan. These were seen as launch pads, almost like factories from where the entire terror operation, ran. India carried out this operation against inside Bahawalpur and Muridke as well. What are your thoughts with regards to this name, Operation Sindoor, the code name which Prime Minister himself gave and led from the front?
It really tugged at the strings of my heart, to be very honest. It was something that felt so personal because this is no coincidence. The loss feels personal. He has gone on to say that, this is not just a name for him. It is a choice because something so symbolic of a woman's marital bliss and her identity being married to somebody has been robbed from her in broad daylight. And the life that she's going to lead from here on is going to be devoid of that, just the presence of her loved one, the man that she was married to. And we all know what a sindoor symbolizes. It's very personal. It's extremely hard-hitting. And somewhere, all of us knew why this is a choice. This is not something that is a secret or in any way a mystery.
To you, and particularly, when the communication was happening during the entire operation, one thing that stood out for me personally was those 2 women officers, and of course with the Foreign Secretary, Colonel Qureshi and Wing Commander Vyomika. Did it actually play out on your mind as well, that, how effective it was and how high on symbolism and messaging as well?
Oh, 100%. It was no coincidence again. And I feel like we aren't the only ones, Maria. It's not just you and me. I think that the whole nation stood up and, we all had that moment of pride that, you wanted to break us on our unity. You wanted to break us. You wanted to hit us below the belt in a way, figuratively speaking. And you have somewhere hit us where it hurts the most. And nothing and no one can come in the way of us as a nation. And for that communication to go through via 2 strong women who belong to different, social backgrounds and they represent different parts of a society and parts of our country. This is India. And this is what I feel so proud of. 2 women in uniform leading the way, telling the enemy and telling, the perpetrators of the peace of our country, really, what is absolutely not going to happen here on.
Nimrat Kaur, thank you for joining us on NDTV. That's all from me on this edition of The Last Word, and Vishnu is right here in the studio for taking the story forward.
Thanks very much indeed. We are taking the story forward. We've got some fantastic guests. We're also looking at the entire issue of whether Pakistan is starting waging a grey war, somewhere between peace and war. Why? Because of all these ceasefire violations. That's one of the themes that we are looking at this evening on Left, Right and Centre. Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I am Vishnu Shom. We've got a lot coming up on this program today. We'll be bringing you satellite imagery as well of the hits that India has conducted on the bases in Pakistan. And we're also diving into escalating India-Pakistan tensions. Are drone intrusions and ceasefire violations signaling Pakistan's military losing control? Despite a Director General of Military Operations ceasefire, Pakistan's grey zone tactics, drones along the line of control and the international border have triggered Indian airport alerts and flight cancellations. Are rogue commanders defying General Asim Munir, risking the stability of the line of control? Meanwhile, earlier today, Prime Minister Modi's Adampur visit showcased India's intact S-400 surface-to-air missile system unit, countering Pakistan's claims of successful attacks on Adampur. We'll also bring you the sharpest high-resolution satellite imagery to be released from Maxar, which reveals India's Operation Sindoor strikes, damaging Pakistan's bases in Mushav, Bholari, Jacobabad and Noor Khan, among other areas. Later on the program, at about 1:30, Tom Cooper, one of the finest aviation experts in the world, in a very special conversation with my colleague Shiv Arur. But let's take a look at the headlines at this hour. Relief for flyers in the aviation sector. Normal flight operations will hopefully resume from the 15th of May. The aviation minister has taken a review meeting today and asked airlines to start normal flights. The Prime Minister sends out a strong strategic message from the Adampur base, tells the forces they've created history. The External Affairs Ministry categorically states that requests for a ceasefire came from Pakistan and that there is no change in India's Kashmir policy. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor has told NDTV that he welcomes the Prime Minister's speech and says that it's crucial at a time of disinformation. The Congress keeps up their demand for a special session and clarity on the role of the United States. The US President Donald Trump lands in Saudi Arabia, meets the Crown Prince, offers to join in the Russia-Ukraine peace talks in Turkey. Saudi Arabia and the US have a $600 billion defense and business deals on the cards, which are going to go through. But let's listen into what the Prime Minister said earlier today when he visited the Indian Air Force base at Adampur, the same Adampur base which Pakistan claimed to say that it struck successfully. In fact, they did nothing of the sort.
साथियों, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर से बौखलाए दुश्मन ने इस एयरबेस के साथ साथ हमारे अनेक एयरबेस पर हमला करने की कई बार कोशिश की। बार बार उसने हमें टारगेट किया, लेकिन पाक के नापाक इरादे हर बार नाकाम हो गए। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर भारत का न्यू नॉर्मल है, और जैसा मैंने कल भी कहा, भारत ने अब 3 सूत्र तय कर दिए हैं। पहला, भारत पर आतंकी हमला हुआ, हम अपने तरीके से, अपनी शर्तों पर, अपने समय पर जवाब देंगे। दूसरा, कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा। तीसरा, हम आतंक की सरपरस्त सरकार और आतंक के आकाओं को अलग अलग नहीं देखेंगे.
All right, the Prime Minister in Adhampur earlier on in the day, but what we can bring you on this program are the highest resolution satellite images which have been released, which go to show the strikes in all of these areas. The Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi, right close to the heart of the Pakistani military center, Sargodha as well. There have also been images which we're going to show you of strikes in Jacobabad further south, Rahim Yar Khan as well we're going to be looking at very closely, Sukur and Bholari further south. So let's bring out the first set of images of Jacobabad. We're going to show you before and after images. This is a before image from the 30th of April 2025 of a large hangar. On the right hand side you can see that this hangar has been destroyed completely. But let's give you a close-up image to give you an idea of the extent of the damage. This is that same hangar. It's been destroyed. There is debris all around. This is what India was able to do in one of its strikes. The next image is of Bholari, what I believe to be one of the most striking pictures. This is an image from the 27th of April 2025. This entire green hangar completely intact. They're believed to house AWACS aircraft, possibly fighter aircraft. They keep revolving them. But this is the image of the 11th of May after India's strikes went through. Let me now show you a close-up. This is the destroyed hangar. There could be aircraft inside. It's unclear at this stage whether that is the case. But there is debris all around as this destroyer completely destroyed. Let's move to the Sukur Air Force Base. The Sukur base, an image from the 3rd of May shows this structure entirely intact. It's a hangar, it's a building of sorts. On the 10th of May, post-India strikes, it's been completely destroyed. Now let's move to a close-up of this particular base, this particular building. For starters, there is a lot of vegetation burn in this area. There seems to have been a fire which went off as a result of the explosion which brought down this particular building. There is severe structural damage, as you can see, all across, debris littered all around. There are also possible burn or strike scars in this particular area, which I'm pointing out over here. Let's move to the next one. The next one is the Noor Khan Air Force Base. This is strategically very, very important. Look over here, and I'd like our camera person to actually zoom into this particular area where I've got my pointer. What you actually see over here are not buildings. These are, in fact, two large trucks. These are trucks which appear to be special purpose vehicles. Could these be command and control centers for particular Pakistani weaponry? This is what was targeted in the image over here on the 10th of May. That in those two trucks were entirely destroyed, right? These are large trucks which were destroyed. They appear to be some sort of a command and control center or a military purpose. Bring you a close-up of that image. While there were buildings which were struck, as you can see those trucks over here, you can see the debris of the remains of that one truck over here, right? This is the cab in the front, this is the trailer in the back, that has been destroyed. Let's go to the next one now of the Mushak Air Force Base in Sargodha. We're talking now about an image from the 30th of April, the runway entirely intact. Over here, this runway has been cratered. We did some analysis with the expert Damien Simon, who helped me indicate or find out that this was approximately 8 to 9 meters wide. 8 to 9 meters wide. That means it is very substantial. You can't exactly get a very clear idea of the depth, but 8 to 9 meters gives you an idea of how major it was. We've got another image as well of a cratered runway. Again, this is 8 to 9 meters in width. This particular part also of the Mushaf Air Base in Sargodha, an image of the 10th of May after India attacked. The next image is of Rahim Yar Khan, another Air Force base. This is the 10th of May, and interestingly, the following picture is also of the 10th of May. The first image, you can see the runway over here. There are no images of any strikes. The image over here is of a clear strike which has taken place in Rahim Yar Khan. In fact, we've got video of that as well. This is the crater that you're going to see over here, which we pointed out in the satellite imagery. It's a very, very deep crater. It's approximately 8 to 9 meters, as I mentioned, perhaps a little less than that, but very deep, as you could see over there. But what we'd like to also do on this particular program is focus on this entire concern about ceasefire violations, because they've been happening despite Pakistan agreeing to a ceasefire with India. Now, Pakistan's drone incursions have violated the ceasefire for the last few days. The big question, why exactly are they doing this? It's clearly escalated tensions. It's prompted Indian security measures. India is retaliating with ack fire, as you can see, and perhaps other weaponry as well. The big question is there insubordination in Pakistan's army which undermines the enforcement of the ceasefire? Why exactly is this taking place? Who are the military leaders who are in charge of this? Pakistan, at the end of this, appears to be employing a grey zone warfare tactic to provoke India. What is a grey zone warfare tactic? A neither war nor peace scenario. And that's a cause of major concern. Is Pakistan trying to normalize, for example, the late night incursion of drones? Is there Pakistani military indiscipline which is threatening the stability of the international border and the line of control? We are clear, India will consider strikes and kinetic actions if provocations persist. In other words, continued violations may force India into military responses. All right, well, we've got some fantastic guests on this program looking at all of this. Lieutenant General D.S. Hooda, the former Northern Army commander, with me at this stage. General Hooda, thanks very much for being with us. Pakistan agrees to a ceasefire. That ceasefire has come at their request, and yet we see these ceasefire violations happening for the last couple of nights. Is this an attempt to create a new normal by Pakistan?
So thank you, Vishnu, for inviting me once again. I think there are two reasons for this. Vishnu, one is there some apparent insubordination in the Pakistan military, frustration with the army chief, because they have actually suffered, and as you showed in your images, suffered a lot of damage. And then is it that they are thinking that at a time like this, when we've suffered a setback, why was a ceasefire called? So could be some local commanders who are frustrated. The other reason, Vishnu, I think is there is still some panic in the Pak military. Today, Prime Minister Modi said that, this conflict with Pakistan is not over. There are fundamental issues that need to be addressed. And therefore, if there's some panic on the other side, sending up drones, trying to make sure that, any military movements on the Indian side are detected. So I think one of these two reasons could be why we are seeing, these drones flying up in the air, despite the fact that, the ceasefire has been announced.
The possibility of insubordination in the ranks of the Pakistan army is particularly worrying. We always felt that General Asim Munir, the Pakistani army chief, was the rogue element. But if there are others, then it doesn't augur well for us, does it?
No, it doesn't. But look, Vishnu, after the fact that there has been an element of radicalization in the Pak military, it's not as if it's the first time that we are seeing this. I mean, even during Musharraf's tenure, we had Pakistan military officers, who were actively sort of conniving against him. So this is a reality. If you radicalize elements, you give them this, false narrative of how superior we are to the Indian military. We can do anything, and the Indian military will not respond well. Then there will obviously be frustration among these radical elements who will try and sabotage whatever sort of peace initiatives are taken by the leadership.
So what does India do? Because I know our stated position is that if you do this, then we will engage you militarily and with force. But then is there a threshold beyond which India will respond? Because these drone incursions can be at a fairly low level as well, in an attempt to create a new normal.
So Vishnu, I think we also shouldn't sort of overstress, what's happening. These are fairly low-level actions. I think what we have clearly indicated with Operation Sindoor is that there is a new paradigm in our strategy to deal with our neighbor. And I think today the Prime Minister very, very clearly outlined those, that we will respond to terror attacks, that nuclear blackmail will not be accepted, and that governments which sponsor terrorism and terrorist leaders are equally responsible for what happens with regard to terrorist incidents in India. That message, I think, is very clearly out, and I would hope and I would think that this would impose greater caution on Pakistan, particularly after the manner in which the Indian Air Force has carried out these strikes, and you showed those images. Literally, I mean, most of the air bases have been sort of put out of action. And if they had continued this and not agreed to the ceasefire, it would have very, very directly impacted air operations in Pakistan. So I think all this they will take heed to. I don't think they are completely crazy, Vishnu.
Right.
I think they will take heed to it. Although these minor provocations of sending drones, etc., I would think is more a sort of a panic reaction from their side, more than any provocation.
Huda, great speaking to you. Thank you very much for speaking with me. Ambassador Venu Rajamoni, the former Indian ambassador, joins us. Thanks, Ambassador, for joining us on this program. I mean, at the end of the day, it seems quite clear that Pakistan has been hit very hard militarily. And according to the sequence of events, and this has been repeatedly stated publicly and to me separately, that it was the Pakistanis who came to the table and said, look, let's get into a ceasefire situation. But they aren't willing to accept that. It is a very difficult situation for India at this stage. How should we respond?
Well, I would say that the first and foremost task at this point of time is to consolidate the ceasefire and make sure that it holds for a certain amount of time at least. It remains a very, very fragile piece at this point of time. We have just concluded the ceasefire. You have been reporting about the number of violations which has been happening, the drones which are still flying, and the rhetoric on the two sides is still very, very strong. Prime Minister made a very strong speech in which he conveyed very clearly that Operation Sindoor is not over. We are watching you. And if there is any indication of you taking an aggressive step, we will come back and hit you. Similarly, Pakistan has responded to the Prime Minister's speech, describing it as inflammatory and provocative. Pakistani minister, I think the defense minister said, Prime Minister is a failed gambler. So there is a lot of intense rhetoric going on. And it was quite possible that the Pakistanis are also trying to keep us on our toes through the drones and through whatever other activity there is on the LAC. So for us right now, what we need is to keep patience, hold our restraint, and try and consolidate what we have achieved so far in terms of the ceasefire and quiet on the LOC, civilian life coming back to normal. What is good in this regard is that after the DGMO's meeting, there was an announcement that they could even look at withdrawing troops a little more. Also, there are some statements. I saw the Pakistani foreign minister talking to CNN and saying that we want to work for regional stability. We want the ceasefire to hold. So we will not do anything provocative. So let us hope it is true. Consolidating the ceasefire will be the first and foremost task. And then we have to think in terms of the long term. The Prime Minister has very clearly ruled out talks. But when we say talks, what I'm sure he means is open, formal, diplomatic talks.
Right.
It is always useful to have back-channel talks. At the beginning of this crisis, there were some news reports which said that our NSA had spoken to the Pakistani NSA. The Pakistani NSA today is in two different capacities. He's DGISI from the army as well as he's a civilian appointee. So it gives us an opening to speak to someone who represents both the army and the civilian government. I hope we can initiate some back-channel contacts through which we can explore long-term solutions to our many issues, issues which we cannot discuss publicly or debate publicly, but yet needs to be addressed. Most important of all, from India's perspective, is putting an end to terrorism. We have done these strikes. We have gone in and destroyed camps, but we all know that camps can come up again in other places. One set of terrorists are eliminated, another set of terrorists will arise. So we need a permanent solution to this problem, and we need to try and talk with Pakistan about this.
For a long, long time. General Asim Munir, how stable a factor is he? In terms of optics, Pakistan has very little to show for itself. They failed in their strikes in hitting our military bases. The satellite imagery, other imagery of our strikes on their bases is very, very clear. Our strikes on their terror centers has gone through as well. Does Asim Munir find himself in a great deal of pressure as the head of the Pakistan army?
Well, it is difficult to gauge what is the state of internal politics within Pakistan at this point of time, and it is just too early. What normally happens, as you would well know, whenever there's a war, whenever a foreign country invades, the country tends to rally together. Politicians rally together, the army rallies together. So it is very difficult to figure out what is happening internally within Pakistan and how stable Asim Munir is. I would say that we must keep focusing on the long term. We must keep focusing on our priority. We must create a system, or we must create mechanisms whereby, irrespective of who's in power, we can ensure that there are no terrorist attacks emanating out of Pakistan targeting India. That should be our primary goal. And going on from there, we should be able to address our various bilateral issues one by one and bring normalcy to that relationship. Immediately, that doesn't seem anywhere in sight. We are going through, we continue to go through an intense phase of hostilities, but we can never afford to lose sight of the long term. And we must have informal talks in my view.
Right. Ambassador, great speaking to you. Thanks very much. Joining us now, Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur. Air Vice Marshal, let's talk a little bit about the images of the hits themselves. Firstly, in terms of the success of India's operations against Pakistani hangars and Pakistani runways, do you believe that the argument which has been made that, look, ultimately the Pakistan military came onto the ceasefire table because they realized if India was doing this once, we could do it many more times, which is why the Pakistan Air Force could potentially have been destroyed on the ground. Is that perhaps, in your opinion, also the decisive factor why they decided to talk?
Thank you, Vishnu, for getting me in. Yes, that's a fact. And if you notice that this whole exercise or the engagements have been driven through the medium of air. And actually, it's air power which has moved the negotiations towards the ceasefire. So having seen the impact of air and our weapons and a very selective targeting which has been done. At places we have hit the runway, at places the runways have been left, like in Bholari, but that hangar has been hit. So it's a very selective targeting. Our intelligence has been hot. And accordingly, this would have conveyed the message that if it extends any further, with the type of weapons we have, with the type of the targeting philosophy we are following, they were in for a tough time. And that is why air power drove them to the negotiating table. So this is what it is, and that's what I feel, and the strikes have been wonderful. You talked about 7 to 8 meters, that's absolutely correct. Our runway is 150 feet, half is 75, and that crater is covering half of that. And that's roughly 8 to 9 meters actually. So those craters are wonderful to look at for a person who's worn the blue.
Air Marshal, let me ask you one question. Pakistan continues with the ceasefire violations. Hopefully there won't be any tonight. It's obviously an effort at a no war, no peace kind of scenario, making drone incursions into a regular phenomena. How does India respond?
It's trying to tempt us. It's trying to tempt us by sort of escalating, with these pinpricks that are happening. But this has happened for the last 2 nights. We have responded in a very, very calibrated manner with small arms fire and anti-aircraft fire. And that is how I think it would be. We must not take the bait. And as the previous speakers were speaking, it could be a rogue commander, but I don't think it's a rogue commander at that sense, because there is a certain discipline to an organized military. So these would be emanating with a bigger plan in mind. We should not take the bait and go on depending on what type of violations these are.
All right, Air Vice Marshal, thank you very much for being with us. The image on your left, on your right is the Prime Minister. Standing in front, and this is very significant, I should talk a little bit about it, an S-400 surface-to-air missile system. This is one of the longest range surface-to-air missile systems that India occupies. It can strike targets in the air 400 kilometers away, including ballistic missiles. The Pakistanis claim that they were targeting this hard. In fact, my information suggests that they had launched a weapon which flew at a near hypersonic speed to try and knock out our S-400 launchers and the system itself, which is composed of several radars. But that weapon system failed. It fell short of Adhampur. The Prime Minister was there today and saluting the brave soldiers, air warriors of the Indian Air Force for helping defend our skies. We're going to take a short break at this stage. After that, a very special interview. My colleague Shiv Arur speaks with Tom Cooper. He's one of the foremost aviation experts in the world, and his views on the air battle that we've seen over the last few days is important. Listen in to what he says.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins. These are the visuals that are coming in. Let's go full frame with it.
For every big news story,
you can't defend the indefensible Ruchira Kamboj, but that's what Pakistan has been doing for a very, very long time.
We are sifting through a lot of information. Some is right, some is not right. But I think we are
India tunes in to NDTV.
In fact, on NDTV, like we've been doing for the last few hours, we've been
for fast, clear, and credible news.
We've also been, busting a lot of misinformation that's been coming in.
When I was standing on the road, I saw these lights going off
NDTV,
in the sky, and I could hear
where credibility
sounds of like
comes
what sound
first.
like blasts happening.
When Pakistan started shelling and first shell landed here, you can see this.
Well, we have reached at ground zero, and this village is
NDTV. First, fast, factual.
The last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Genzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong, and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Jaggi brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaroop. Only on NDTV 24/7.
A week after Operation Sindoor, when the Indian Air Force conducted long-range offensive airstrikes on military targets inside Pakistan, one of the first voices to offer a full endorsement as far as the success of these strikes was military historian and air power expert Tom Cooper. He's from Austria, and a blog post written by him has gone incredibly viral here in India for understandable reasons, but also all over the world. And we're very happy and privileged that Tom has given us some of his time to discuss some of his findings in that blog post, which we're very interested in hearing about. Tom, welcome. Thank you for giving us your time here on NDTV. Your blog post, like I said, is something that a lot of people in their millions have read here in India. I have a feeling that given the experience in 2019 when many of the successes were up for dispute, reading a full validation by you where you've called it a clear-cut success, a clear-cut victory for India. Can you start, Tom, by telling us why you think so?
Thank you very much for invitation, and very nice to be with you here. Why this clear-cut victory? When you follow the evidence that is available, and there is evidence, of course, it takes a lot of time to sift through it and to find out what is true, what is not true, and one is making mistakes in the process as well, no doubt about this.
Yeah.
But overall, when you have you follow the entire developments, the grand picture, you have the situation where India started with an airstrike on 9 terror camps, which is the crucial point about this entire situation. India didn't want to do anything more. India wanted to hit these 9 terror camps. India knew they are related to the Pakistani government, to the Pakistani armed forces, but it limited its operation to striking 9 terror camps. And had Pakistan been sane enough to to accept this fact and go over it, the entire situation would have ended at that point. Excuse me. However, what happened next? Pakistan attempted to retaliate. It launched a massive missile and UAV strike. What happened with this strike? It was obvious that it is unsuccessful. There were hundreds of intercepts of Pakistani missiles, of Pakistani UAVs, and no serious damage was caused to India. Why was this obvious? Because there was no evidence in confirmation of Pakistani strikes causing some kind of evidence, some kind of damage to India. What happened as next? On the contrary, India hit back and started knocking out Pakistani air defense systems. What happened in that case? There was evidence that Pakistani air defense systems were hit, and not only a few of them, but in Gujarat, in Lahore, in Karachi. So 3 major centers, 3 major air defense systems hit. What degree of damage unknown, but obviously enough for Pakistan to then attempt retaliating with its air force the next day. What was the result of that airstrike remains unclear, but obviously no serious damage was caused to India again. On the contrary, Indian air defenses remained active, vivid, shooting down additional UAVs, shooting down additional missiles, claiming to have shot down additional Pakistani aircraft. Evidence might be, forthcoming or not, we are going to see. But the point is, Pakistani second attempt to retaliate was unsuccessful. And then you have, all of a sudden, India striking Pakistani air bases, and there is clear evidence that it was striking also nuclear weapons facilities, storage facilities. And when somebody is striking nuclear weapon storage facilities, this is really, there is nothing more serious in warfare than such operation. And knowing how conservative, how reluctant, how cautious Indian top generals in particular, they do not take such decisions easily. Which means By that point in time, they were already certain enough to have damaged Pakistani capability to defend itself so much, degraded it to such a degree that they could dare, so to say, striking nuclear weapon storage facilities. Now, by all respect, whatever the politicians say, whatever this prime minister says, or that prime minister says, whatever whoever else says, at that point in time, it is a clear-cut victory because India is free to strike nuclear weapon storage facilities, and Pakistan is hitting back, but it's not effective. Which means Pakistan has no means left to hit back on India, not even with nuclear weapons. And with this, I said, clear-cut victory,
Tom, I did want to dig a little deeper into that last bit for just a minute. Apologies for interrupting you, but I just wanted to get under the layers of that answer because the Indian Air Force, on the record in their press conference had said that, there was no targeting of nuclear facilities. But let's move beyond that point to what you were talking about in terms of the actual strikes themselves. Why do you think these strikes were successful? And specifically, Tom, what did you think of the battle damage imagery that the Indian Armed Forces have put out? The reason I ask this is because only a few years ago during Balakot, India found itself in a mess of claims and counterclaims. This time it seems to be more decisive, and your word on it, believe me, counts for a lot.
I don't know how much is my word counting or not. There are also people who do not like me in India.
Believe me.
But the point is this: after the Balakot strike, the evidence provided by India was not conclusive, not enabling definite confirmation or negation of the damage caused. And in this case, it was, right from the start, I could follow in Pakistani social media that out of 9 terror camps attacked by India, Pakistani social media was confirming multiple hits on at least 6 of them. I mean, this is, okay, not 100% success, but 70 or 60% success, definite success. And I mean, if you have 2 hits on a madrasa here and 5 hits on a madrasa there, this is confirmed by the locals. There's no different locals, not by just 1 or 2 or 5 the locals, but several of them. It is obvious that something was hit and severely at that. So, conclusion: the strike was largely successful. What I didn't like at that point in time was that India fell again for its usual behavior, pattern of behavior, which is, oh, dear Pakistanis, excuse us, we are hitting a little bit terror camps in your country, but we are not shooting at your armed forces. Everybody in our branch, in this military security analysis, knows that Pakistan is harboring, not only harboring, it is organizing, indoctrinating, financing, training, equipping, and commanding jihadist terror organizations, and not only 2 or 3, but several of them for 60 years already. Sending them, they are running an outright jihad import-export business over there. So when you hit these jihadist training camps in Pakistan, you are hitting the Pakistani armed forces as well. Therefore, this is why I didn't like and what I criticized in my earlier post as well. Expecting the Pakistanis are going to stop and say, oh gosh, this was very impressive what India did. You're not going to shoot back over the border. This is naive and leading nowhere. Therefore, I was kind of relieved when I saw on 8th of May that Indian Air Force and actually ground forces have started to target Pakistani air defense systems, because that meant, okay, now New Delhi really means business. And it's not going to stop at that.
No, you and I share that view, Tom. I completely share that assessment of yours, which is, that India, I think, has drawn a red line now. It no longer distinguishes between, terror camps and the military. The Prime Minister also said that today. My third question to you now is, right, absolutely. And my third question to you, Tom, is that with all this, very, very clear battle damage imagery. You know, we've seen the satellite images. You know, someone as respected as you, and the reason why you're respected, Tom, even though many people may not like you here in India, is because you're fair. You know, you're not on anyone's side. You have criticized India during the Balakot time. This time you've called it a clear-cut victory. So you're someone who, you know, one can trust because you're clearly not partisan in this case. So my question to you then is, a lot of Indians will be wondering and are wondering, and I myself have wondered about the narrative in the Western media. You know, with so much clear-cut data, imagery, you know, the word of people like yourself, there still seems to be a slant in the Western press, which you have called PR efforts. Can you tell us what you mean by that, and why is it so? Why is it so difficult, you know, for India's word to carry in the Western press?
The Western press in particular, and the Western public additionally, have very, I always say, a memory of the fish. They remember the last 5 minutes and then perhaps, you know, 1 or 3 points from the last 40 or 50 years. And one of these points is, oh, back then, the glorious days of the Reagan administration, Pakistani F-16s were shooting down. They weren't, but that's what the Americans recall, is that they were shooting down Soviet MiG-23s over Afghanistan, and Pakistan was helping, you know, arrange the payback for Vietnam in Afghanistan and so on and so on. And this is what they are recalling. When you talk with Americans, on average, nowadays they do not even recall that Osama bin Laden was found and killed inside Pakistan, where he was hiding for years. Even less so, you know, when you talk, even less so, it's actually so. When you talk with US Army officers that used to serve in Afghanistan of 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, that were fighting Al-Qaeda along the border to Pakistan, they are going to tell you Pakistani army was sitting up there on the hill in its positions and drinking chai by watching the Al-Qaeda run around them, cross the border and hide inside Pakistan, and where the US army couldn't follow them, of course. So why is this not penetrating the wider public? I don't know. I'm not the wider public. What I know is that this is not unknown, and there is always this, you know, for example, after Balakot, there was this, oh, no way, this Indian trash, which means Russian and French-made aircraft of Indian Air Force could shut down our holy F-16s. That was the summary of the reaction, particularly from the United States. Indians, you know, claiming here widely how they have shot down our F-16, which is not true. Although there was clear evidence. I mean, MiG-21 has just, at least Wing Commander Abhihandan's MiG-21 has just one seat, but there were two parachutes clearly to be seen in the sky, and Pakistani civilians on the site are talking about 2 people coming down on the parachutes, and one of them badly injured. So, and this second pilot never emerged, at least not out of the cloak of the ISIS. So, you know, the West is always taking sides. It's always considering this as sort of a football match, so to say, at least the public. You know, you have also, there are enough well-informed people who understand what is actually going on, who are even mad about this false narrative spread by the media, but they do not have the influence, contacts, and so on in order to change it. It is exactly like what Israel is doing in Palestine. There is a genocide going on, and governments are simply ignoring it and supporting it, actually, but the media is still reporting in favor of Israel. So how do you change that? I don't know how.
It's something for India to definitely think about, and I'm sure as far as narrative in the Western press is concerned, it's something that the system will be you know, thinking about, especially since this time things have been significantly different from Balakot. My fourth question to you, Tom, is when those missiles were hitting their targets in Pakistan, a lot of people want to understand it because, you know, for those who are, you know, consuming this story from a distance or through the media, all of it seems like a video game. But from an air power perspective, can you explain to us how effective these strikes were, the Indian strikes were on those military bases, and why is it that Pakistan was unable to mount a retaliation using its air force as a result of these strikes?
This is an excellent question, even more so because we all know, you and me, and probably, the Indian military top, Indian intelligence, and people worldwide who are busying themselves with military affairs knew the Pakistani integrated air defense system was a very powerful system. They have only recently received additional very advanced radars from the United States. They have got such advanced air defense missiles like HQ-9 and HQ-16 from China and so on. So how it was clear that something is happening. When you see that things are blowing up, and there are several videos showing this HQ-9 system in Lahore, in Walton, in suburb of Lahore, it's hit. You see the Harop coming down from the skies and hitting something, and there is an oily explosion.
Yeah,
that is one evidence. Then there is another video showing something similar from some other, I think it is from Gujarat, showing a similar scene. You see that something is happening, and then you see the Pakistani missiles and UAVs coming in huge waves, and shot down by dozens. Okay, some have gone through the Indian air defenses. There is no dispute about this. There is no wonder weapon solving all the problems and defeating everything coming its way. So also not the Indian air defense system.
Yeah.
But Pakistani air defense system was taken by surprise and badly damaged. So much is clear. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Indian Air Force to strike air bases as heavily as it has hit them, at least on the 9th of May, if not earlier. You could see, we are talking here not about complete destruction of entire bases. To destroy a single air bases are very heavily fortified. They are very big facilities. They're stretching for 2 or 3 kilometers. You do not destroy this with 2 or 3 hits. You need 50, 60, 90, 100 hits on such a base to completely demolish it. But when you see single missiles coming in and striking, for example, selected major hangar, maintenance hangar, or control tower or underground facilities, then it's clear that the air defense is not working. And that was the case with the Pakistani air defenses. So what is then the logical conclusion is Indians have attacked. You know that day earlier Indians have attacked this air defense system. Day later it's not working. That means that this air defense system is not destroyed, but not neutralized, but suppressed enough for the Indian Air Force to strike its targets, and that at will by the morning of 10th of May. And then it is not surprised to hear that at 9 o'clock in the morning, the Director General of Military Operations from Islamabad called New Delhi on the hotline and said, okay, let's sound it a ceasefire. So this is, serious logical conclusions on the basis of available evidence. It is a process which is taking several hours a day to sift through all of this, through all the reporting, social media, mainstream media, contacts. What do they say? What have they heard? What kind of videos are they publishing, and so on? But eventually, you're doing this carefully enough, at least a big picture is coming into being. And the big picture is, by 10th of May, the Indian Air Force was definitely in position to strike whatever targets in Pakistan it wanted to strike. Whether with ease or not, we don't know. We are going to find out. But it was striking precisely. It was hitting, the major base of Pakistani AWACS. It was hitting one of the F-16, or actually 2 of the F-16 bases, one of G-10 bases, JF-17 bases, and so on and so on. So that means it could hit what it wanted. And whether then the politicians or air marshals or whoever else are explaining, no, we didn't know there is a nuclear weapon storage facility over there, excuse me, that is irrelevant. Because if I know that there was a nuclear weapon storage facility, then I expect Honorable Air Marshal to know it as well. And therefore, I dubbed that he is so irresponsible, like shooting missiles in all the possible directions. And then all of us, sudden and by pure accidents, 2 of them hit exactly the entrance into this underground facility. What an accident. This would be, like lottery. And Indian armed forces are not commanded by people who are gambling. They're commanded by people who are overcautious, who are indoctrinated to be overcautious, who who are experts in being solidly conservative in their approach to how they're conducting military operations. So therefore, sorry, by all respect for Air Marshal and his statements, he knew what was there and he targeted precisely, or at least his airmen targeted very precisely.
Yeah. No, I agree with you about the wordplay and the things that are left unsaid in these conversations. Let's, I think, acknowledge that we still are in either a full fog of war situation or a semi-fog of war. This is still playing out. The operations in some way or the other are still continuing. My final question to you, Tom, is, the word deterrence is used very often when it comes to India and Pakistan. And deterrence, is the overall intention of these operations. India says, this should make sure that something like Pahalgam never happens again and no provocations should ever happen again from Pakistan's side. Do you believe what the Indian Air Force achieved by striking those bases has sent out a deterrent message to the Pakistan military?
Well, I'm not in the boots of Pakistani generals and even less so in the sandals of their political masters. But the point is this: their deterrence didn't work. They were threatening to, strike wherever and whatever in India they want to strike, in the case India hits back up on them. And they have ordered this terror attack of in April on account of being sure that India isn't going to dare challenging them. What happened? India not only dared striking terror targets, but in retaliation for Pakistani retaliation, dared hitting their air defense systems and neutralizing better part of that air defense system. Moreover, when they attempted to retaliate again, their own retaliation was ineffective. Their own missile and UAV strikes were ineffective. I do not say they were 100% ineffective. On the contrary, they're probably 10 or 15% effective, but the mass of them was ineffective. With this, the Pakistani deterrence collapsed like a house of cards. There was none of it left. And when then the Indian Air Force, probably on 9th of May, managed to push the Pakistani Air Force away from the international border, it means it has gained itself, enabled itself to operate closer to the border, to launch even more airstrikes into Pakistan, and started hitting, which resulted in this operation to hit Pakistani air bases. Then there was absolutely nothing left of Pakistani deterrence, to a degree where these overcautious Indian generals, whether they admit it or not, have found themselves in a situation to start ordering strikes on not only one, but at least two known nuclear weapon storage facilities. So again, nobody gambles with such facilities. Nobody is playing with this. This is no accident. This is no we didn't know. Fact is, you don't touch such facilities except you're absolutely sure the enemy cannot hit back. The enemy cannot pull out his nukes out of that underground facility, put them on some aircraft or on a missile and shoot them in direction of India. Nobody is so crazy as to do that, and especially not Indian generals. So therefore, they were in a possession of total superiority in grand picture. Perhaps tactically in different sectors they haven't had a superiority or absolute certainty that they are going to be successful and suffer no losses, and Pakistan cannot hit them. But the matter of fact is, in grand total, they have concluded Pakistan cannot hit back on India. And that's why this decision to strike such facilities. And eventually, promptly after that, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I said, Director General of Military Operations in Pakistan is on the phone, calling New Delhi. Well, how about we make a ceasefire because it's not working? This is also an act. Pakistan is not doing such things. I mean, talk with Pakistanis, whoever, talk with their retired military personnel, talk with their active military personnel, talk with average Pakistanis. Nobody there has anything that they do not know the word capitulation. They don't, so much so they wouldn't, until today, they wouldn't admit what happened in 1971, for example, or in 1999 in Kargil.
That is true.
There is absolutely, they do not have the concept of military defeat. They only know Pakistani Air Force is the best on the world and it's going to defeat India with ease and so on and so on. And now all of a sudden, well, we have seen something different.
Well, if that is the, the template that Pakistan has always lived on, well, boy, have things changed in the last few days. And Tom, I thank you for sharing your wisdom, your observations, your commentary with us. It is valuable, and the reason why it means a lot to us to get a voice like yours is because it's independent. And in a time of a fog of war, I think there are lots of partisan voices. Like you said, there are PR efforts, etc. But for someone who has criticized India in the past to now offer something that seems like a validation, which is rare, that's the reason why it is something that we will hold on to and respect, and I'm sure all Indians will as well. Tom Cooper, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking to us on NDTV.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and really big pleasure to be with you today.
आपने पाकिस्तानी फौज को भी बता दिया है, पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कोई ठिकाना नहीं है जहां बैठकर आतंकवादी चैन की सांस ले सके। हम घर में घुसकर मारेंगे और बचने का एक मौका तक नहीं देंगे। और हमारे ड्रोन्स, हमारी मिसाइलें, उनके बारे में तो सोचकर पाकिस्तान को कई दिन तक नींद नहीं आएगी।
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality. Accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled clarity you deserve in a world clouded by misinformation. We are bold, we are direct. Newsnight, for the news in your interest. Only on NDTV 24/7.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard gunned down.
भारत में निर्दोष लोगों का खून बहाने का एक ही अंजाम होगा, विनाश और महाविनाश।
पार्लियामेंट सेशन चलेगा, उसमें बहस होगी, तो आपकी सोच क्या है, पाकिस्तान में एक्चुअल में क्या हुआ, आपने क्या किया, और मैसेज अच्छा जाएगा देश के लिए।
भारत माता की जय।
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. Operation Sindoor has hit a pause, but the Prime Minister is charging forward. He's rallied the troops earlier at the Adampur Air Base. We'll put out those images on your screens. This happened just earlier today. He's celebrating the historic strikes in Pakistan, much like the country. Going a step further, the Prime Minister has also warned Pakistan of annihilation. Annihilation, he's also used the Hindi word. He says Mahavinash, if it doesn't mend its ways. That is the warning to Pakistan. The BJP has been out on the streets. They're igniting the streets with the Tiranga Yatra. We'll see if we can put out also those images. They are flaunting this triumph. And what is the opposition doing? The opposition is firing back. The opposition is questioning the ceasefire's timing. And also, remember the US here claiming the sole credit because they used a particular word. What is that word? Mediation. After a brief lull as expected, it is back to domestic fireworks. And that is a story we are keeping our focus on. That on one side, you have the Prime Minister's warning of annihilation for Pakistan. And on the other side, you have a ceasefire versus this domestic crossfire. Without wasting time, I quickly want to introduce our panel of guests. As I will say good evening to Advocate Arshpreet Khadial, who's representing the Congress. If we can also have them on our screens. Charu Pragya is going to be representing the BJP. Sajjan Kumar, I see him there, is a political analyst, and also Major General R.C. Paddy, who's a defense expert, is with us. And we are just waiting for both our political experts to join us in just a moment. And as that happens, let's also put out our straight questions. These are questions we'll try to find an answer to during the course of the entire show. The first big question, as you have seen the entire conversation revolving around, what about the US? Is the US, ladies and gentlemen, right now overstating its role? Why the silence? The government directly hasn't addressed what the US has said, and that is why that question. This brings us to our second question. Is it a fragile ceasefire? But how long will it sustain? Can you trust Pakistan? These are again obvious questions. This brings us to our third question now, that is up on your screens. Is the center guilty of avoiding opposition's questions? The opposition says this is a government not putting out the facts. Is that true? We'll ask the BJP and the Congress also in just a moment, for which you also have the fourth straight question. Is the Congress right in asking those questions? Or is this plain, simple politics? Who's playing politics? Who's muddying the water? This brings us to our fifth and the final straight question. You have the BJP's Tiranga Yatra versus the Congress's Jai Hind Yatra. So ladies and gentlemen, think of this. Competitive nationalism. Both the parties doing this. When the country has achieved this feat, is this the right time? Right time for competitive nationalism? That's got to be the question that's got to be asked. And because I do still see only Sajjan and Major General R.C. Paddy with us and not our political representatives. I see Charu there, but we'll also wait for our Congress spokesperson to join us in just a moment. But Charu, tell me, is it the BJP running away from the questions that the opposition today is asking, or the Congress is guilty of playing politics, Charu?
Deepthi, good evening. And let me begin by saying Jai Hind Ki Sena. You know, opposition is allowed to ask questions, but since the day Pahalgam terror attack happened, our opposition has actually not taken the side of India. They have been speaking in the same tone and tenor that Pakistan uses. So much so that their statements up till now have been circulated in Pakistani media, have been quoted in Pakistani parliament. Do you remember that incident of a toy fighter jet, the Rafale with the Nimbu Mirchi that happened? Atrocious, terrible. That is the way our opposition has been behaving. And what did you want us to do? Send an RSVP to Pakistan before any of this happened? Or start debriefing everyone before the mission is over? So, like previously, we would have compromised the mission. So, I very firmly say this. There is one war which is being fought at the borders, which our military is fighting for us, and they're doing such a valiant job. At the same time, there is another war that all of us as Indians need to fight, and that is the information warfare. And we are all a part of that, Deepthi. We cannot run away from it. Did you see how united the Pakistanis seem, even when they make their tall claims that they have bombed a port in Bangalore? Little do they note that there is no sea in Bangalore to have a port. But the point here is they speak unitedly in one voice for their country. What is wrong with my country, people? I do
You're
not
saying
understand.
there is something wrong with the opposition in the country. I will let the opposition.
Let me finish.
Yes,
let me
Charu,
finish.
Charu, give me a moment because, you know, Arshpreet has just joined us. He's representing the Congress on the show. And my plan was to go to Arshpreet first because that should have been the first question, Arshpreet. You're raising a lot of questions. You know, why so many questions and why now? You're looking at the Prime Minister saying that this is the final warning going into Pakistan. If Pakistan does not mend its ways, it will have to face total annihilation. Arshpreet, is this the right time for politics?
No one. Kindly allow me a minute uninterrupted.
Yes.
First and foremost, we salute our armed forces. They have given a befitting reply to Pakistan. Number two, we have, ever since Pahalgam attack, we have always asked for a united house, a united response. Therefore, the all-party meeting was proposed by us. Special parliament session was proposed by us. Mr. Modi skipped it, went for Bihar campaign rally. Nevertheless, we have again proposed a special parliament session so that the country could be included through their members of parliament and one befitting response be prepared. Because, you know, at the end of the day, the Bharatiya Janata Party needs to tell us a few things. Number one, USA has appeared as a big brother who's mediating between India and Pakistan. Before us, US President on X announces a ceasefire. Then we announce a ceasefire. Then ceasefire violations are done by Pakistan. Now, the fact of the matter is that is what the president of US said before Mr. Modi spoke. He said that if India and Pakistan wants to do trade with us, they will have to have a ceasefire. Otherwise, there will be no trade with us. Is this what the stand is? Is that what the terms and conditions to this ceasefire are? So our first question to the BJP is, did US itself involve itself in the ceasefire agreement, or was it India that asked for it? Number one. Number two, we also want to know at the same time. 1 second, allow me to complete, please.
Yes,
allow me to please complete.
Arshpreet will take another 30 seconds, Charu, to complete his point. Then you can respond to him. Yes.
Thank you. So number one is that, and number two is that US also said that we will now help resolve the Kashmir issue. So have we opened the gates to Kashmir issue as well to the US? Number three is that people were recalling Indira Gandhi because of the things we did in 1971 when we had Pakistan surrender. We all remember how Indira Gandhi secured an IMF loan which was of more than $5 billion despite US opposition. And in 1965, how our army went at the doorstep of Lahore and made Pakistan surrender, and a message was conveyed. India cannot be messed with, Indians cannot be messed with. Today, the country is asking, when our army was doing a wonderful job, the fitting reply was given to Pakistan. Why this ceasefire? Why did we not bring Pakistan to its knees for having used drones, for having used missiles, for having killed 26 brothers of ours?
You've raised a lot of questions. You've raised a lot of questions. It's only
I will
fair I
answer them
get
all
Charu
one
to
by
respond. Charu.
Very quickly, when I was speaking, when Arshpreet came in, I was talking about the information warfare. This information warfare is very important, Deepthi, because this is a completely separate front.
No,
on
Charu,
which all
I want you
Indians...
to respond to these pointed questions that have been raised by the Congress, please. Because I have two more guests who haven't spoken yet.
Deepthi, will you please stop interrupting me and let me finish speaking the point I'm trying to make?
Please come to the point.
In this information warfare, we see the opposition of our country firing for the enemy nation. In this information warfare, what we see today is that everybody who's remembering Indira ji today, and she's our former Prime Minister, my respects to her today. But did you not remember her after 26/11? Where were you? Where were you after 26/11? What did you do? Did you even remember Indira Gandhi once? Did you say that this terrible incident has happened in our country? Terrorists have stuck deep within our financial capital and we are going to avenge this? You couldn't even open your mouth. You wrote letters after that. You wrote letters after that, Arshpreet. And please, today, if you're going to sit here and question everything while the operation is still on, you're not on India's side. If you must be a troll, and I said this, Deepthi, and I've been saying this on X again and again. If the people of India have blessed you with a voice that is being heard, use it for your country at least today. If you must be a troll, go and troll the Pakistanis.
No, Charu, there's no point. There's
your
no point becoming personal with anyone. See, this is about the country. Everyone stands with the country,
And what are
the
you
government
doing?
of the day.
And
But
what are you doing when your country needs you?
Another 30 seconds, Charu.
Allowing-
I want to ask you one pointed question. Are you saying
Yes.
that whatever the opposition is asking, whether it is about the role of Donald Trump, whether it is about them speaking about, mediation, he used the word mediate. He also, US has also used the word neutral place, broad issues. And this hyphenation again and again of India and Pakistan, are we okay with this? Is the government, is the BJP okay with this?
Absolutely not. And let me remind all our viewers, but especially Arshpreet, that when our DGMO spoke to the Pakistani chief, it was done at 3:15 p.m., which was said extremely clearly in the press briefing that was done by our armed forces. If you had just bothered to listen, it's unfortunate that you pick up a tweet and look at the time of that tweet. You will not do that, but you prefer to believe every other narrative except the one which is being given to you by your own armed forces. My point here is, and very clearly I'm asking this, when Modi ji does not mention any foreign interference, why are you going on and on about it? It's
So
not
is the
like
US lying, Charu? Is
President
the
Trump.
US lying? Should we call out the US?
So absolutely, and we are doing that.
Okay.
Do you know today, absolutely today, the WTO has been sent a letter which has increased duties on steel and on aluminium. We are talking the language that US understands.
Fair enough. Arshpreet, just 10 seconds. The US is lying. The government has made it clear, they say, then why is the opposition continuing to run with that narrative? Stand with the country, no?
Extremely explicit in the language we use.
My only question to the BJP is, please hear the question and please try to respond it specifically. Did we involve the US for the mediation, or did USA involve itself?
No, US is not involved is what Charu is saying, no, Arshpreet?
So did the US not announce ceasefire before us? Did Donald Trump not say that if you want to do trade, then you'll have to do a ceasefire? If you do not want to do trade, there will be no. If you'll not do a ceasefire, there will be no trade. Is that not a fact? Number two. People want to know what the stand about it.
Okay, one by one. Charu and Arshpreet, let's do one thing. Both of you pull back. I've given you the initial few minutes to, bring out this political crossfire, but the story is far bigger. And this is unfortunate because we are looking at such war of words, gentlemen, Sajjan Kumar and General R.C. Pari. When we look at what's been happening, General Saab, why don't you tell me whether, an entire offensive like India has mounted, the entire Modi doctrine that is now out in the open, that we do not succumb to any nuclear blackmail, talks and terror do not go hand in hand, we've ensured we strike deep into Pakistan's heart. Should this all not just be about India? What is this US, angle that the opposition and a lot of other people, especially in the Western media, want to parrot right now?
Well, one thing I would like to tell you, in the 4 days of war, the Indian military has demonstrated its firepower, and we used only maybe less than 5% of our capability. If we have got that capability of in 4 days, and if we are given more time, we can definitely crush the entire terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan. So that message is already gone. Now, when we are at war, so there are two things which is very important: the military power and the power, will of the nation. And will of the nation is always represented by the political party which is in power. But behind the political party in power, I think this time the entire nation was standing behind, including the Kashmiris. I underline the word Kashmiris. First time the Kashmiri population, they were emotionally and otherwise fully behind the cause and behind the Indian government and the armed forces, which is a very, very welcoming step. And secondly, what you said about the, foreign things. The problem is that in the era of globalization, and there are superpowers are there, and there are some powers, they think that they are superpowers, like the China. They think that they are a superpower, which is not, because India is much more powerful. And the good thing is that the Chinese weapon systems weaknesses exposed this time.
Exactly.
Because because earlier, because their weapon system was not tested earlier. Now it is tested, and we have demonstrated that we have got the Indian capability as far as the military hardware are concerned or military firepower is concerned, is much superior. Similarly, the drones which they got from the Turkish is nothing in comparison to ours. So I think from that point of view that the foreign interference, even if somewhere there, and if somebody is supporting Pakistan, we are much in a better position in dealing with our adversary Pakistan.
Okay, I think that's a very fair and a nuanced point, sir, that you have made. But Sajjan, I have to ask you this. Is this the right time to play politics? Do you think anyone in the country today is playing politics? Or you believe that this is the moment when the country has united and we have seen a united response versus Pakistan and terror?
Yes, precisely. I mean, this is the time wherein we do see a sense of entire country coming together, and particularly in the aftermath of the defense personnel's briefing with credible and tangible evidence, and that is indisputable. This is one. And given the professional integrity of our defense forces, certainly it has a very entrenched impact. Second, certainly political parties and politics is always an indispensable. This is always the side effect that will happen. And various parties trying to score brownie points. Remember, after 71 war, Indira Gandhi was lauded as Durga even by the opposition, and it paid, the political dividend also to the ruling party of the day. So that is sort of a default benefit. You don't have to endeavor for that. This is one. And opposition party is trying to pick hole. But it's a question about the timing, right? Now, the unfortunate aspect has been there came a bizarre tweet by President Trump, and we do know the nature of tweet that President Trump is in the habit of making. US official policy and President Trump then do not go together in terms of one being quite serious, other being casual. Two, we do know the Tulsi Gabbard and others, their initial tweet was unconditionally in support of India, calling out Pakistan and Islamic terrorism, etc. So therein you cherry pick one tweet, and that shows that you have a confirmation bias, you have a conclusion to prove, and all you are waiting for one opportunity to, hold the entire discourse by its tail and spin it to your benefit. That was unfortunate, because this is not about a BJP versus the Congress war. This is about the India versus Pakistan. So you do believe the Indian defense personnel briefing, do they leave any doubt that our objectives was not achieved? Does it leave an iota of doubt that what was aimed and the kind of credible destruction that has been claimed is under any doubt? So if Indian defense has made it, personnel and their briefing has made it categorically clear, what is the point of always holding on to something, right, that is always casual in nature? And I'm talking about President Trump's tweets. If you start taking President Trump's tweet that seriously, then you have to take all his tweets seriously, because he is in a habit of making bizarre claims, right? And many a times his tweets do not represent the official policy of the US. He has a way of playing games on the Twitter. So this is one. Second aspect that is about the kind of this political acrimony going on between the opposition, and we do not see a united opposition. You see someone like Owaisi and AIMIM kind of. Now, one can say that this is something complete kind of unexpected, but that really showed a sort of kind of a pleasant surprise that everyone wanted to see, and everyone is welcoming despite their political differences.
Yes.
But since Balakot strike, this tendency of trying to, bring disrepute, trying to sort of playing it down and create a sense of doubt is something certainly it gets utilized. It doesn't confine to your national audience. It gets picked up by various medias, various countries.
Exactly.
And this is something that the prime opposition party should be extremely careful about.
I think
So that's a
Sajjan is
generic
trying to show
sentiment.
the mirror to our netas, because our netas, netas being netas will only play politics. Harshpreet, do you regret this? And do you have a confirmation bias? As in, does the Congress have a confirmation bias? And would you want to respond to what Sajjan has said?
See, number one, we want to make it crystal clear that we stand with the army, we stand with India. When it's a matter of our citizens that are being killed on our land, on our soil, it was but needed. The reply that our army has given ought to be saluted, ought to be commended. What we are saying now is that after that, there have been ceasefire violations after the ceasefire was agreed to. And the president of the US is saying this thing that if you do a ceasefire, there will be trade with you. If you don't do a ceasefire, there will be no trade with you. How does this sound to the world? What image is the US trying to convey qua India that we can be? Is he trying to basically say that we were forced into a ceasefire? Is he trying to insinuate that?
I don't know whether he's trying to insinuate that or the Congress is wanting to insinuate that. But because you raised that question, Harshpreet, I have limited time and I want Charu to respond to that right away. Charu.
Deepti, the objective of this entire mission was not to bring Trump in the middle, like Harshpreet is trying to insinuate here. One, our objective was fully and completely met when we bombed 11 air bases of Pakistan, and our armed forces presented that with concise, precise proof, because they remembered what happened during Balakot. It was the likes of Harshpreet and his party which were raising questions on our armed forces also. The second point here is when our Prime Minister has clearly taken action.
Please, one by one. Yes,
yeah, and secondly, like I said, I was talking about the press conference where it was made very clear that DG ISPR called Indian DGMO at 3:15 p.m. It was said concisely, precisely again in the press meet. Where were all the people of Congress? Tell me. And most importantly, Preeti and Deepti, I've been saying this again and again. Your house is on fire. Your country is at war. You cannot sit and just support your country.
We'll do trade or else we'll not do it.
Has India said
I don't understand, like Sajjan said, that is this an India versus Pakistan or this is a BJP versus the Congress?
Exactly. And India has not said it.
Somewhere to say that we stand with the country a little, but still we believe Donald Trump. Why? Because what he's written possibly might suit you, though you're not listening into what the government is saying, Harshpreet, because Charu has just responded to your question.
Now I'll tell you something.
Harshpreet, hear me out.
Okay, Charu, hear him. Just 10 seconds. Yes, Harshpreet.
Yeah, thank you. See, what we are saying is, if Donald Trump is, we also say this, that India would be governed by our government, by our Prime Minister, not the President of the US. Why does he have to announce ceasefire before us? Why does he get to say all of these things? And when he's saying it, if it is wrong, why are we not rebutting it? Why is Mr. Modi not saying anything about that? That what Mr. Trump is saying, we do not agree with it. Why is there no clarification coming from the government?
Okay, now I've heard you. Deepti, can I please respond?
Okay, Charu, just another 5 seconds, no? Because I need to give the final words to the other two gentlemen who've been very patiently listening to this tutu meme going on. Charu.
All we are saying is that the government ought to give clarification as to what do we have to say about this.
Charu is responding, Harshpreet. Listen to her, please. 5 seconds.
What we are saying is,
No, 1 second. Harshpreet, please. Your country is at war. You want your Prime Minister to drop everything because you have asked a question. Deepti, I do not understand how you're allowing this debate to continue off an issue which is of such utter importance.
Now because we've seen the politics, here in the forefront, Charu.
You're counting my seconds and you're allowing the
Charu, take your 5 seconds and respond, please. Take your 5 seconds and respond.
Every time I open my mouth, you allow the Congress
Go on, please, Charu, please. It's an important day, please. Let's not trivialize this conversation.
It's an important day and I expected you to put a full stop.
Go on,
what he's trying to say when I was speaking.
Go on, please.
He prefers.
Harshpreet, please pull back. It's a request. Please, you've raised questions. Listen to her, please.
Carry on. You want to fight against your own country.
No, we are not fighting against the BJP and the Congress, please. Please, it's a request, Charu. You're wasting time, Charu. Please respond to that question.
Deepti, I'm disappointed in you today, greatly disappointed in you, because on an issue like this, you have allowed Harshpreet to speak over me and I've been polite and I've been
Harshpreet, I do not understand. Why do you want to do this? If you're raising questions, it's only fair you listen to the other person, right?
Even on a day when we are discussing our country, you have allowed the opposition to run away with their agenda of hate. I'm disappointed in you. I'm saying this for the first time on air, Deepti.
That is okay, Charu. You can still take your 5 seconds before I close the show. Please respond.
And I will take my 5 seconds,
Yes,
and
go
I
on.
apologize, sir. It is important this is said. Arshpreet prefers to pick up a tweet of a person who shoots off the gun, who's a loose cannon, over the narrative his own country is setting, over the statement of his own DGMO, and he's proud of it. Shame on him. At a time like this, when he should be rallying behind India.
Okay, no,
if you want
Ashpreet,
to be a
no
global
crosstalk,
be a
no
tone against
crosstalk.
Pakistan.
And Sajjan and General R.C. Paddy, I apologize, sir. Only for want of time, I'm not able to come back to you. But I think the country today has seen where is this conversation going. Charu and all gentlemen, I thank you for responding to those questions that we had set up. Let's also quickly get you News Night's parting shot now. So as tensions continue to simmer between India and Pakistan, remember Narendra Modi's scaled up warning to Islamabad has reverberated. And back home, you have the opposition that continues to sharpen its attack, in fact, finding gaps in government's position and stance. Even when time is uncertain, time is fragile, time is dangerous, there is that one thing that never pauses, one thing that never ceases, and that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, is politics. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24/7.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins. These are the visuals that are coming in. Let's go full frame with it.
For every big news story,
You can't defend the indefensible, Ruchira Kamboj, but that's what Pakistan has been doing for a very, very long time.
We are sifting through a lot of information. Some is right, some is not right. But I think we are
India
getting it right
tunes
mostly in
it to
terms of the information
NDTV.
we put on air.
In fact, on NDTV, like we've been doing for the last few hours, we've been
For
not only
fast,
reporting what's
clear
happening
and
authentically,
credible news.
We've also been, busting a lot of misinformation that's been coming in.
When I was standing on the road, I saw these lights going off in the sky, and I could hear
where credibility
sounds of like
comes
what sound like
first.
blasts happening.
When Pakistan started shelling and first shell landed here, you can see this.
Well, we have reached at ground zero, and this village is
NDTV. First, fast, factual.
The last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Denzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong, and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Junkie brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, It matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24/7.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
News is not just headlines.
भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की जय। इस जयघोष की ताकत अभी अभी दुनिया ने देखी है। भारत माता की जय, ये सिर्फ उद्घोष